we go, we're recording. Hello, everyone. It's Phil, it's Discover Tai Chi, it's LimbPower, and it's also my birthday today. I didn't tell
Happy
you.
birthday to you.
Oh, thank you, Kate. So, yeah, I'm happy to spend my birthday just with you. So, yeah. It's just a work day, really, isn't it? I'm just carrying on doing what we're doing. So, shall we get moving? Let's do that. I will do, as you know, my mix of seated and standing. Okay. Well, it's good that we've got who we've got, because, again, it's an interesting challenge, particularly when we think about balance and stability. And I'm mentioning that because I did a presentation for another organization just on this subject of balance, stability, what they are, and how we can improve them. So we're going to shift that weight from one side to the other. That's a good start. Nice and relaxed. Again, we're just getting used to that idea that we can allow our center of mass to move and that we feel that we are in control of it. That's one of the key parts of feeling stable and balanced, is that we're in control. And we know, we've talked about this a lot, but it's about keeping our head and our shoulders and our torso between our base of support. If it's a seat or if it's on our feet, it doesn't matter. It's all about keeping that center of mass in between the base of support. Okay, let's pick our hands up overhead and we're going to challenge that stability by taking the hands. Let's go to one side. You choose, doesn't matter which side you choose. And the movement's called embracing rainbows. But as soon as we take those hands and arms to one side, those muscles of the trunk or the core, as it used to be called, really have to come into effect. If they weren't able to do their job, we'd simply collapse. But they're doing their job and they facilitate, again, this large weight transfer, only now it's overhead. Very apt for you, Kate, as you'll be having to put things in the overhead locker on that flight. Lower the hands down. So again, as soon as we lift anything above our head, it lifts our center of mass. Our center of mass normally is around our abdomen, but if we begin to lift something overhead, it kind of collectively shifts that center of mass further up, which means that we've now got to be even more aware of our balance and stability. So practicing movements that take our upper limbs above our head and doing some challenging things with them is useful. So we're going to do that. I'm going to do a little thing called a dolphin roll. Let me demonstrate it seated because that will make sure that my hands aren't disappearing off screen. So we're going to go with a lift overhead. Okay, could imagine that we're getting something down out of a cupboard or putting something up. But then we're going to do a little turn to one side. And then we're just going to lower whatever we think we're lowering just down to about shoulder height. And then we're going to pick it up. Ooh, there you go. There we are, back overhead. And you've guessed it, we're now going to go to the opposite side. And we're just going to stop at shoulder height and then pick back up. There we go. And then we're going to have a little rest because we're going to do that again. Okay, so we're lifting something up overhead, and then we're doing that thing that we do in day-to-day life where we turn. And again, we have to support that load. In this case, it's just our hands and arms. I shouldn't say just, they have a lot of mass to them. Okay, here we go again. Up overhead. You can look in that direction if you would like. And then just choose a side, a turn to that side, and a lower. Only this time, see if you can lower a little bit below the shoulders and look in that direction. You'll feel just how much that challenges your stability, I hope. And then you've got to lift up the way you came, back to the top, and then do the same on the opposite side. See if you can drop a little bit below shoulder height. And then lift back up. You can imagine if you were holding something, that would be quite a task. Okay, so we're going to go again, and we're just going to go a little bit lower. Again, I can't tell you how far to go. You know the rules. You do you. Work within a range where you're comfortable. Try not to turn it into a stretch. So here we go. Pick a side, nice and slow. So again, we're imagining that we're lifting something down and we're lowering it down, and maybe it gets to the hips. That would be enough in my books. And then up again, off to the other side and down. And again, if it gets to the hips, that's a jolly good range of movement. And back up. Many years ago, I learned that movement, and it was called a dolphin roll. Not sure if I've seen dolphins do that, but we'll go with that. Okay, should we have another go? We go. Down we come. That's it. To the hips and up. And then to the other side, you can probably feel just how much you have to organize yourself in order to accomplish that movement. That's it. By organize, I mean you're just kind of being very aware of where your balance is, how your trunk is moving, how stable you are feeling or not, might be the question, and work with that. Just hang there. This is just to illustrate, because this is a great movement. If you want to have a practice at home, grab a cushion. This is a sofa bolster, but you get the idea. It's not too heavy. It's not going to matter if you drop it because it's nice and soft. And again, I could do the same thing. Only now, even with just that cushion, that's enough to add a little bit more challenge. Oh, you got a cushion, Kate. And down on the other side. So that can be quite nice to have something not very heavy, but it really kind of embodies that movement or task. So there you go. I'm not going to take you through lots of those. It's a very useful prop, and we sometimes think, oh, we need something like a medicine ball or something else. But actually a cushion is a jolly good thing to use because A, it won't matter if you drop it, and it's probably just enough for most people to start with. So I'll leave that for you to play with in your own time. But it's a really, you can feel that. I can feel it, so I hope you can feel it there. Okay, so let's get some rotation in that trunk as well. There's two aspects to rotation. There's being able to rotate and rotate quite a bit, and then there's being able to rotate but resist that rotation, i.e. to brace might be the better word. So let's do our casting our cares away, because it involves rotation. So on this first round, we're going to really rotate into the movement. I'm going to use my right hand, and I'm really going to rotate and turn as far as I can in the direction in which I cast my stone. I did it on the left. So just get into that movement. Again, we're doing it in a Tai Chi or Qigong style, so we're not doing it very fast. We're doing it in a very steady pace. We could say mindfully. And we're just being very aware of, again, just how much that can challenge our balance and stability as we go. Okay, I'm going to do one more on each side. We'll have a moment just to catch ourselves, so to speak. Okay. So we can just have a little bit of a move. We could just do some nice willow. Breeze blows through the willow tree. Again, just nice gentle rotation now. Very relaxed hands and arms. That's it. Very nice. Okay, back to our cast our cares away. Only now we're not going to rotate very much. We're going to, if I illustrate, I'm going to kind of try and do as little rotation as possible. Whereas before I was really rotating. Now I'm going to try and do as little. There'll be a bit, but you're trying to actually resist that rotation and kind of be, what can I say, efficient. Not sure if that's the right word. Never like the word efficient. I'll have a better adjective in a moment. But we're trying to be kind of conservative, or we're conserving energy, and we're doing just enough to flick that stone or ball that we're casting our cares away, but we're not rotating too much. So there comes an element where we purposefully are putting the brakes on to resist that rotation. Let's go again. One more to each side. So I hope you get the difference. It would be if someone came up behind you with your permission and rotated your shoulders. In one round, you could let them really rotate and you really go with it. And then the next round, you give them a little bit and then you resist. Yeah? You give them a little bit of rotation and then you put the brakes on and you kind of go, that's it, matey, I'm not rotating any further. And those are two separate movements. One's full rotation, one would be called anti-rotation or rotation with a brace. And we need to be able to do both. You can probably see sometimes we need to do lots of rotation. I always think of reversing a car, especially if you don't have a posh car that's got cameras and things that tells you how to park. I've not got a posh car. I have to look over my shoulder and have a look at what's happening. So that always comes to mind. But then there's times when you need to brace yourself and avoid that ability to move too much. You need to be able to basically put the brakes on. A nice analogy is to think of it as an emergency stop. You have to really kind of bring everything to a halt and be able to hold your position. So again, that's very, very useful. I'm going to sit down for some more rotation. And we'll do gaze at the moon. Again, this brings in a bit of a spiral and a lift as well. And here we are starting off small, and then we're going to build up how much we rotate within a range that feels comfortable for us. Let's go up to the right. So again, start off small. Be very sort of conservative with that movement at first. Just kind of ease your way into it because it's a very big movement. And that sweep of the hands and arms from one side to the other, again, is a lot of mass in motion that you have to be in control of. And as you get bigger and bigger, as I hope you are, you can, again, probably really feel just how much the muscles of the trunk are really working all the way from the ground up, whether you're seated or standing. I'm going to do one more sweep. There we go. So again, I'm kind of hoping that, again, you get a really good feel for that range of motion. Again, that could be a movement where your cushion comes in. I won't do it, but again, you could sweep that cushion up from one side to the other. Again, you'd be quite surprised at just how demanding that is. So just go steady. Don't overdo things in your enthusiasm to explore some of these ideas. Okay. Another form of bracing is to resist a push. So we can do this with 4 directions. So if we can, seated or standing, we want to kind of have a wider base as much as we can. A nice way to think about this, especially if you grew up in the 70s, is the need to push your car from time to time. Or was it just me who had cheap cars? Maybe so. But being able to push a car, it's not a thing nowadays, is it? So let's think of, yeah, okay, I'm just showing my age. We're going to push forwards. Okay, so first of all, just have a sense of gentle resistance as we push. And then draw the hands back, again, slowly, mindfully, and then out to the sides. And again, there's a sense of gentle resistance as we push out to the sides, extend those arms, and then let them relax, draw back. Here we're going to go overhead. So again, we could imagine gentle resistance as we push. And then we can drop the hands all the way down. Bring them up. And now we're pushing all the way down towards the ground. Fab. That's our first round. On our second round, we can up our imaginary resistance. We need to feel as though we're now having to push and brace as we do that push, because if we didn't brace, we'd end up just pushing our torso back, wouldn't we? So we need to keep our torsos braced and in one position as we push with our hands in those 4 directions. So are you ready? Here we go, pushing forwards. So you could lean in a little bit and then imagine that there's that resistance that you need to push against as we push, push, push. And it's only now that we really kind of let everything go. Relax, take your time to draw back. And then get ready this time out to the sides. Push, push, push. And really imagine that you've got to brace through the shoulders and the chest and expand outwards. And then you can let everything relax and go. When we push above, certainly in my mind, I have this sense of the ceiling is lowering and I'm going to push against it and push it up. That's it. Push, push, push. It's like being caught in one of those films where the ceiling is beginning to drop down. That's my imagination anyway. And now pushing down, we're pushing down. Resistance as we push in that direction. There we go, 4 directions. Let me just have a little drink, because all of this pushing and bracing begins to get your temperature up. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so life is very much these movements, reaching, lifting, bringing things down, pushing, pulling, even if it's things that we don't think about, bringing a teacup or mug down from a cupboard requires us to have a stable position and the ability to pull and bring something down carefully. We know if we get seriously ill or we have a suitably serious accident, even simple tasks like making a cup of tea can actually become really challenging. And hence that's why we have rehabilitation with physiotherapists and occupational therapists to help us facilitate some of those day-to-day tasks. So let's do some pulling. We've got pull the boat. Let me stand up. Let me rejoin people who are standing. Okay. So again, as insofar as you can, try to have a wider base of support, as if you really are going to kind of dig in a bit and brace. Okay. And then we've got our rope. We've got our boat, and initially let's make sure that that boat is just nice and light, very easy to pull. We're going to sweep our hands around. We're going to choose a hand. We're going to reach out. We're going to wrap around our rope. And yes, we brace a little bit, but it doesn't take much to begin to get our boat moving. So let's just do that. You'll notice that there's some rotation. And you can choose to do a lot of rotation so that you really get some long pulls through the rope. But let's imagine that that boat suddenly gets a bit heavier. What tends to happen as things get heavier is that we tend to rotate a bit less because we need to have as much force going into that rope now to pull that heavier boat. So it might be that you begin to rotate a little bit less. And then let's imagine that that boat gets even heavier. And now you can hopefully really feel the muscles around the waist really engage as you pull our imaginary boat ever closer. That's it. Let's do a couple more pulls on each arm before we get that boat in. But I can certainly feel muscles in my trunk working. I hope you can. So again, even without anything to pull on, you can use our imagination to really get those muscles engaged. If you do go to a gym, Maybe you do. Again, an exercise that we certainly do with our group we work with as a community is pulling a sled. It's got a rope attached to it, and we get them to pull the sled, and at first the sled is unloaded, and then we start putting load on and making it heavier, and then people really have to dig in and brace and pull quite significantly to move that sled. So again, maybe that's a familiar thing for some of you who are watching. Okay, I need to be aware of time because time has flown. So one more exercise that again has lots of these elements. It's wave hands in clouds. So it's got rotation, but not too much. And it's got this sense of bracing through the legs, even if we are sat down. So let's have our right hand on top, left hand underneath. Okay. So again, really imagine that we have a dance partner. Okay. There's a body, there's mass, and we need to lead them to the right. But we also need to, because we're the lead, stop that movement. Exchange our hands, and then we need to gently but purposefully lead them across to the opposite side on the left before we swap hands and lead them again back to the right. So have that sense that you are working with another human being. And although they're not resisting you, it requires a certain amount of purposeful movement to bring that person across with you in wave hands. And again, I'm hoping that that really helps get those muscles of the trunk, and also you probably feel it in the hips, muscles of the hip as well, working quite significantly to do that. Again, simply because we really pay attention to moving our imaginary dance partner. Good job. I'm going to go once more. And then come back to the center. And relax. Woo. So, bracing and not bracing, really, are those two concepts. And those would be a yin and a yang, two opposites. And that's what Tai Chi is, exploring the extremes sometimes of one form of movement versus another. They're related, rotation in this case, but one tries to maximize range of motion, the other tries to minimize that range of motion. And we need both in day-to-day life. So let's bring things to a close because I need to let you guys go. So let's just bring the hands up and down. So now we're just nice and stable. We can just be very focused on just moving the hands and arms, gathering that work that we've done, bringing it back home. And on this third and final one, if you wish, we can link thumbs or just bring one hand on top of the other. Rest on the lower abdomen. Big breath. Let it go. And just pack all of that away. Nice and relaxed. And just breathe. Just 30 seconds or so. That's all that's needed. And then pop hands. And there we go. So I hope that's been interesting, enjoyable, and maybe giving you some food for thought to play with some of those ideas and movements, and maybe bring a cushion into the exploration. Let me stop recording as we go.